Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real right now. Some people, they didn't lose you because you weren't good enough. They lost you because their ego was louder than their heart. They chose pride. They chose arrogance. They chose control. And now they sit somewhere quiet in their own thoughts, wondering how they let someone like you slip away. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that a lot of folks find out too late. It ain't honesty that breaks most relationships, it's ego. Ego is the silent killer. It don't shout, it don't throw punches. It just sits there, smiling and proud, while everything around it falls apart. See, people think telling the truth is what hurts relationships. But the truth, that's where healing starts. That's where understanding begins. It's the ego that steps in and says, don't say that. Don't admit that. Don't apologize. Ego tells you to protect yourself instead of connect with someone. And that's where things go wrong. Ego will have you looking at the person you love and still refusing to say, I was wrong. Ego will have you needing that person but refusing to call. You'll be crying on the inside, but sitting there with your arms folded like nothing's wrong. Why? Because your ego said it would make you look weak. It would make you look like you care too much. So you hold back, you stay cold, you keep distance. But deep down, you're miserable. That's what ego does. It locks you in a prison of your own pride. Now, let me break this down for you. When two people love each other, they're going to have disagreements. That's natural. That's part of life. But love survives not because everything is perfect. It survives because both people are willing to put their pride aside to make it work. When one person starts choosing ego over effort, that's when the cracks show. One person says, let's talk. The other says, I don't need it. One person says, I miss you. The other shrugs it off because they want to seem strong. And little by little, that wall of pride gets higher and thicker until there's no more room for love to breathe. Ego won't let you say sorry. Ego won't let you say, I need you. Ego won't let you admit when you messed up. And when both people are living out of ego instead of love, that relationship doesn't stand a chance. It dies from silence, from stubbornness, from a refusal to just be real. See, ego is fake strength. It looks like power, but it's weakness in disguise. Real strength is being able to look someone in the eye and say, I hurt you and I'm sorry. Real strength is saying, I want to fix this, not win this. But ego don't care about fixing. It only cares about being right. It only cares about control. I've seen good people walk away from great love because their ego wouldn't let them stay. I've seen folks spend years regretting the words they didn't say, the apologies they didn't give, the love they didn't fight for, just because their ego told them it was better to look unbothered. Let me tell you this, pretending you don't care might protect your pride, but it won't protect your peace. It won't hold you at night. It won't heal you when you're hurting. And it sure won't replace the person who would have stood by you if you had just dropped the act. We live in a world now where ego is glorified. And social media got people thinking being savage is a flex. Leaving first, ghosting, not caring. That's what's popular. But what nobody tells you is that behind all that ego, there's a whole lot of lonely. There's a whole lot of I wish I would have when it's too late. Because when you push away someone who came with honesty and love, you don't just lose them, you lose the version of yourself you were becoming with them. Honesty is hard, yes, but it's honest conversations that save relationships. It's honest feelings that build trust. It's honest effort that shows love. Ego can't give you none of that. Ego is selfish. Ego will have you standing on a pile of victories that mean nothing because you won every argument but lost the person you were supposed to build with. So if you're holding on to ego right now in a relationship that matters to you, ask yourself what it's really costing you. Not just today, but long term. Ask yourself if proving a point is worth losing a person. Because once they're gone and the silence is louder than your pride, that's when it hits. That's when ego don't feel like power anymore. That's when regret moves in and makes itself at home. And by then, it might just be too late. Some people think walking away means they've won. They pack up their pride, walk out the door and tell themselves, I don't need this. I'm strong. I'm better than this. But what they don't realize in that moment is that strength isn't always in the leaving. It's in staying. It's in working things out. It's in facing what's uncomfortable, not avoiding it. But ego convinces them they're doing the right thing, that somehow being distant, silent, or cold is the powerful move. What they don't see is that they're walking straight into loneliness, into silence, into nights they can't sleep, sitting with the very regret they try to avoid. See, strength isn't about turning your back and pretending nothing affects you. Real strength is when you love someone enough to stay, to grow, to fix what's broken, even when it's hard. But some people don't get that. They confuse silence for peace and distance for strength. And they walk away thinking the other person will miss them, chase them, cry for them. But when that doesn't happen, reality hits. The same confidence they had when they left slowly fades, and regret starts speaking louder than pride. There's a kind of pain that hits you when you realize you let go of something real, a pain you can't numb with distractions. And when the dust settles, the phone doesn't ring, the messages don't come, and the one they thought would come crawling back doesn't show up, they feel it. Deep. That kind of regret doesn't go away easy. It lingers. It whispers in the quiet moments. It shows up in memories and old photos and empty beds. That's when they understand. Walking away didn't make them strong, it made them blind to what they had. People think strength is about not needing anyone, but the truth is everybody needs somebody. And if you ever had someone who cared for you, who stayed through your mess, who tried to understand you, who loved you without conditions, and you left that behind to protect your ego, you didn't win. You lost more than you know, because people like that don't come around every day. They're rare. And when you leave someone like that, thinking there's better out there or thinking you can do life without them, you often realize too late that what you left was exactly what you needed. They say time heals all things, but time also reveals all things. And time will show a person just how much they gave up. Time will expose the truth that ego tried to hide. They'll start seeing the difference between temporary attention and lasting connection, between someone who flirts with you and someone who prays for you, between someone who entertains you and someone who builds with you. And that's when they realize They didn't walk into strength. They walked into silence, into empty victories, into a life without the one person who saw them for who they truly were and still stayed. And here's what people don't want to admit. A lot of that regret comes from knowing they had a chance to fix things, but chose pride instead. They had a chance to say, I'm sorry, to say, let's talk, to say, I still care. But they let that moment pass. And moments like that don't always come back around. Not because the other person didn't love them, but because even love has limits. Even the strongest heart can get tired. And when someone gets tired of being the only one fighting, they eventually stop. So now they sit with it, the memory of what was, the image of someone who gave them loyalty, truth, and patience. And every time they see that person smile without them, grow without them, heal without them, that regret deepens because they didn't just walk away from a person. They walked away from a future, from a possibility, from something that could have been everything. And they did it thinking they were strong. But sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit you need someone. And when you fail to do that, regret becomes the only thing holding your hand. Your worth is not tied to someone else's ability to recognize it. Just because somebody couldn't see the value in you doesn't mean you weren't valuable. Some people are blind to good things. They're so caught up in what they think they want, they miss what they actually need. And when they fail to recognize what's right in front of them, that's not a reflection of your lack. It's a reflection of their limitation. You could be a whole treasure chest full of gold, and if a person is only looking for pennies, they'll walk right past you. Too many people start questioning themselves when someone mistreats them, ignores them, or walks away from them. They start asking, was I not enough? Or what did I do wrong? But let me tell you something. Sometimes you weren't wrong at all. Sometimes you were everything right and they just weren't ready for that. You brought truth, loyalty, peace, and love, but they were looking for something shallow, something temporary. And because you didn't fit the image they created in their mind, they couldn't see the blessing standing in front of them. But that's their issue, not yours. You don't stop being who you are because someone else couldn't appreciate it. Your value doesn't go down just because they were too immature, too broken, or too distracted to receive you the way you deserved. People like to measure worth based on attention. If someone stops calling, stops texting, stops showing up, suddenly we start believing we're not worth showing up for. But that's not how it works. People walk away for all kinds of reasons that have nothing to do with your value. Some people run from real love because it scares them. Some push good people away because they don't believe they deserve them. Some chase chaos because that's all they've ever known. So don't take their decision to leave as a reflection of your light. You just shine too bright for where they were in life. You have to understand that your worth is not up for debate. It's not something other people get to decide. You don't become less just because they treated you like less. If someone throws away a diamond, it doesn't become worthless. It's still a diamond. They just didn't know how to value it. And when people don't know what to do with something precious, they mishandle it, they drop it, they damage it, they walk away from it thinking it's replaceable until life teaches them that it's not. And I know it hurts. It hurts when you gave your best and they acted like it was nothing. It hurts when you showed up for someone who didn't know how to return that same energy. It hurts when someone you believed in made you feel invisible. But even through that hurt, don't forget who you are. Don't let that experience redefine you. You are still worthy of love. You are still worthy of respect. You are still, people's choices don't define your identity. Their actions don't determine your value. And just because they could love you right doesn't mean you're unlovable. It just means they weren't the one. It means you're being protected from further pain, from settling, from being half loved. You were never meant to be tolerated. You were meant to be treasured. And one person's inability to see that doesn't change the truth of it. So hold your head up, walk in your truth, keep being who you are. The right people, the ones with vision, maturity, and heart, they'll see you. They'll appreciate the depth you bring, the love you offer, the strength you carry. They won't question your worth. They'll honor it. And until that day comes, never lower your standards, never dim your light, and never stop believing that you are more than enough with or without their validation. Pride can put on a strong front. It'll have someone acting like they don't care, like they've moved on, like nothing ever touched them. Pride wears a mask that says, I'm fine, when the truth is they're not. Pride makes people say things they don't mean just to prove a point. It makes them push people away that they actually want close. And for a while, they can fool everybody, even themselves. But the thing about pride is it's temporary. It's a performance. And time is the truth teller. Time always brings everything to light. You can pretend for a moment. You can act cold. You can stay silent. You can hold your head high like you've won. But sooner or later, time reveals what's really going on. That front starts to crack, the silence gets heavy, the memories get louder, and that pride that once felt like power starts feeling like pain. Time has a way of bringing the truth out of people. They start to realize what they've lost. They begin to see that what they pushed away wasn't a threat, it was a gift. But by the time pride lets them admit it, it's often too late. Some people walk away from love, from friendships, from real connections, all because pride told them to. Pride convinced them that being right was more important than being real. It told them not to apologize, not to bend, not to open up. And while they may have looked strong on the outside, on the inside, they were just scared. Pride is fear in a suit. It hides insecurity behind arrogance. It hides pain behind silence. And in the beginning, it works. It keeps them from facing themselves. It keeps them from being vulnerable. But time brings all of that to the surface. There comes a moment when the pretending gets exhausting, when the ego starts to feel like a burden, when you can't even look at the person in the mirror without thinking about who you hurt, who you lost, who you pushed away. And in that moment, no matter how much pride you had before, it can't protect you from what's real. Because time has a way of making you see clearly. And sometimes the most painful realization is knowing that you were the reason for the loss, that your pride cost you something irreplaceable. See, pride can hide regret, but it can't erase it. It can silence your mouth, but it can't silence your heart. Time starts whispering when the noise fades, when the distractions disappear. And those little whispers, they're loud in the quiet. What if I had just called? What if I had just said what I felt? What if I hadn't let them walk away? Those are the questions that pride never lets you ask until time forces you to. And what's crazy is so many people don't even realize what they had until time removes it from their reach. They don't feel the weight of what they gave up until they see that person laughing again, smiling again, loving again without them. And that's when pride loses. That's when time wins, because time don't lie. Time doesn't sugarcoat. Time will show you exactly who was real, who mattered, who had your back when you didn't even have your own. And it will also show you who you became when you let pride lead instead of love. By the time some people decide to humble themselves, to admit the truth, to take responsibility, the door has already closed. The moment has passed. And that's a hard pill to swallow, realizing you held on to pride so tightly that you let something beautiful slip through your fingers. That what you were trying to hide was never gone. It just waited for time to reveal it. You can't run from time. You can't outsmart it. Time will always expose what pride tried to cover. The tears behind the smile. The regret behind the silence. The love behind the distance. Time brings everything to the surface, and when it does, all that's left is the truth. And sometimes the pain that comes with finally seeing it. People make the mistake of thinking that love means forever access. That no matter what they do, no matter how they treat you, you'll always be there. They take your kindness as weakness. They see your loyalty as a given, and they start believing that no matter how many times they let you down, you'll still pick up the phone, still answer the door, still show up. But the truth is, even the most patient heart has limits. Even the strongest soul gets tired of being taken for granted. And one day, that always they counted on turns into never again. See, when someone truly cares, they'll put up with a lot before they walk away. They'll forgive the silence, overlook the attitude, try to understand the distance. They'll believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. They'll stand by you when no one else will. But when you treat that kind of person like an option for too long, eventually they realize they deserve to be a priority. And when that day comes, it doesn't matter how long they waited, how much they loved, or how deeply they cared. When they decide to walk away, it's final. Some people lose the best thing that ever happened to them because they thought they had time. They thought you'd always be waiting, that you'd always stay soft, always stay forgiving, always stay willing. But something changes when you've been hurt enough times. Something clicks. You start choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over someone else's inconsistency. And it's in that moment that they realize they misjudged you. They thought they had you on lock, thought you were too invested to ever leave. But they were wrong. They didn't notice the way your voice changed when you stopped begging. They didn't catch how quiet you got when you stopped explaining. They didn't see the strength it took for you to stay silent, to hold back, to walk away with your head high instead of your heart low. They thought you would keep fighting for a place in their life, but what they didn't understand is you finally decided to fight for yourself. Now they're sitting there with memories, looking back at the moments you showed up. The times you stayed up late just to talk, the way you loved them through their worst. And it hits them different now because they thought those things would always be there. But now they see that kind of love wasn't just ordinary. It wasn't something they can find anywhere else. You weren't just another person passing through. You were the one who showed them what it felt like to be understood, supported, and loved without conditions. And they let that go. They lost you, not because you stopped caring, but because they kept giving you reasons to stop. They lost you because they mistook your consistency for obligation. They thought you were there because you had to be, not because you chose to be. But the truth is, you chose them. You chose them every day, despite the disappointments, the misunderstandings, the silence. You stayed when most would have walked. You loved when it wasn't easy. And still, they couldn't see it. Now they sit in regret, not because you left suddenly, but because deep down they knew it was coming. They felt you slipping away and still did nothing. They saw the light dim in your eyes and still stayed in the shadows. And now they replay every moment, every conversation, every opportunity they had to treat you better. And they feel the weight of it all. You didn't leave because you stopped loving them. You left because you finally loved yourself enough to say, I deserve more than this. And that's the part that hurts them most, because you were always there until you weren't. And now that you're gone, they realize they had something rare, something real, something irreplaceable. But the doors close, and the silence they once gave you is now the only thing they hear. They didn't think you'd rise. They didn't think you'd glow without them. In fact, they didn't think you'd move on at all. Because in their mind, they were the best thing that ever happened to you. They thought you needed them to feel complete. They believed they held the power in the connection, like they could come and go as they pleased, and you'd always be there. But now look, now they're watching the same person they once ignored, overlooked, or doubted become the peace they can't even touch. There's a certain kind of silence that comes after someone's healed from what they never got closure for. A kind of calm that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't explain anymore. And you found that peace. You built it out of all the pieces they left scattered. You gathered your dignity, your strength, your worth, and you started again. Not to prove anything to them, but to finally honor yourself. And while you're living in that peace, smiling again, sleeping better, loving deeper, they're on the outside looking in, realizing they underestimated someone who had everything they needed. See, when someone counts you out, it's not always because you're lacking. It's because they can't see past their own ego. They couldn't see your heart because they were focused on their own reflection. They missed your loyalty because they were too distracted by their own options. But time changes things. Time reveals who was real and who was just convenient. And now that time has done its job, they're seeing clearly, but it's too late. They're watching you live in the very peace they used to disturb, and they're wondering how they lost access to something so rare. They didn't realize back then that your love wasn't loud, it was deep. It wasn't in grand gestures, it was in consistency. It was in being there, in understanding their silence, in believing in them when they didn't even believe in themselves. But they didn't value it. They mistook your softness for weakness. They thought your forgiveness was permission, so they took advantage of it. And now, as they sit in silence, watching you flourish, they finally understand what they gave up. And here's the real thing. They can't reach you now, not because you hiding, not because you bitter, but because peace has become your new boundary. You've outgrown the confusion, the mixed signals, the emotional roller coasters. You've matured beyond needing someone to validate your worth. You've become a person who's centered, grounded, and intentional with your energy. And people who still move in chaos can't access that. They can't touch what they used to take for granted They can't step into your new life with the same old mindset. It's hard for them now because they're remembering the you that stayed up late just to make sure they were okay. They're remembering the way you listened, the way you loved, the way you poured into them without keeping score. And now they're craving that energy. But the truth is, that version of you doesn't exist anymore. That version evolved. That version healed. That version is now reserved for someone who will never put you in a position to question your own value. They thought they had time. They thought you'd always be accessible. But now you become the kind of person who protects their peace at all costs. You become the kind of person who doesn't chase people, who attracts what aligns and lets go of what drains. And that's something they didn't see coming. They were so focused on their ego, they didn't notice your growth. But now every time they scroll, every time they hear your name, every time they see you smile in a way that no longer includes them, they feel it. That sting, that silence, that regret,